This episode is sponsored by the Hawaii Society of CPAs. Welcome to a new chapter in the Accounting Arc podcast, an exciting series of student-led conversations, ARC style. Get ready for fresh insights, bold ideas, and new perspectives. In this episode, we're passing the mic to a bright student interviewer who's sitting down with leading accounting professionals, changemakers known as agents of transformation. Whether you're a student exploring career paths, a seasoned pro looking for inspiration, or just curious about the future of the accounting profession, this episode is for you.
All right, welcome everyone to this very special episode of the Accounting Arc podcast. Today, I am really excited to welcome Arpan to our show. Arpan is a high school junior and a member of the Indiana Business Professionals of America State Officer Leadership Team. Oh my gosh, that's a mouthful.
Wow.
And she's also a student intern with the Center for Accounting Transformation, where she's been a part of our team working on the Agents of Transformation initiative. And you can't figure out who she is by just looking at her now. The Agents of Transformation is a key. Something I'm sure Alfred's going to share more with us about today. So today, Byron, Liz, and I are going to be kind of in the hot seat because Arpan's actually going to lead today's show. So with that, welcome Arpan, and the floor is yours.
Thank you, Donny. I'm so excited to have this chance to talk with all three of you today and hear more about your personal journeys in the accounting profession. While preparing for today, I thought about the fact that a lot of podcasts that students are listening to learn about a career path that they may be interested in going into doesn't seem to have this type of format where a student like me has a seat at the table to ask professional thought leaders direct questions that I or my peers might have. So today, questions that came directly from students interested in learning more about the accounting profession and the opportunities that they might have. So if it's okay, I'd like to start with an icebreaker question for all three of you.
Okay.
Okay, so knowing what you know now and where you are in your career, what would you say to your younger self if you could start your career path all over again?
I can jump in on that one. I would say be flexible and open to changing the path that you thought you were on. When I started my career, I thought I had the destination determined for what I was going to do. And I found out very quickly as I got into my career that destination was far from reality. I ended up taking a lot of different left-hand turns and right-hand turns throughout, which has brought me to a really great place in my career that I never even would have expected. So be open to those tributaries and different opportunities that might not have been in your original vision of where you were, your destination.
So I didn't know you in high school, Byron. And also, that was a very generic answer. And I feel like you could do better. So I'm going to challenge you. Can you try again and talk to yourself in high school?
Oh man, that is not fair, Liz, at all. I mean, it really was. So when I was in high school and I discovered accounting, I was like, you know what? I am going to go into accounting. I'm going to be a public accountant. I'm going to be a partner in an accounting firm. And the path was straight. I had it figured out. Like it was all the destination I was predetermined for me. And that was my plan. And I spent so much time in my early career laboring over the idea of changing that destination of like all these opportunities kept coming at me to go different ways, to follow technology, to do different things. And, I kind of in the first couple of years, I was like, no, I'm going to become a managing partner. No, I'm going to be a partner in an accounting firm. And then when I finally said, you know what? Maybe I should listen to all these things in my brain and all these opportunities are coming my way. And maybe it's a different destination. All of a sudden, like the world opened up. So it really was, about just like being open to that change.
Thank you for going into that a little bit further because I think one of the best things about you and your career path, which of course we've unpacked in lots of different ways, is that you did take that moment to think, who am I and what can I actually contribute? Right. And coming into a profession like accounting, where there are doors everywhere. You can walk down a hallway and see a million opportunities and doors because we're sitting in the lifeblood of any business, right? We're seeing the ins and outs, what's happening, how businesses are run, how they fail, how they win. And all of that we have eyes on and we get to experience and see in real time. And so when you're walking down that hall and you have a personality like Byron, like his best, highest use might not be managing partner in an accounting firm. Although when you're looking at the profession from the outside and you're young, you're like, that's the most ambitious thing I can do. So that's
right.
what I should do. That's what society tells me I should do because that's what the path is, right? And like you said, you can walk down that path and blindly ignore all these doors opening with all these cool things going on, or you can open the door and look behind it. And so I'm going to double down on what Byron said and lean into who you are, right? I am also not the perfect managing partner for a public accounting firm, even though I started my own and now I am. But I can tell you I'm not the best at it and probably can do a bunch of other things. And I have done a bunch of things along the way and gotten glimpses into lots of different industries and different types of businesses and the way things work, both locally, nationally, internationally, different industries. Like we work with the cannabis industry, which is, an industry a lot of people were like, oh, we're not going to touch that. I started my career working on casinos and gambling. I did tax returns for prostitutes, legal prostitutes in Nevada. But to say like that there's, this one path of boring accounting, managing part, that's just absolute BS. And focusing on what is possible, like doing all the research, figuring it out. Sometimes it just takes intuition, what you're interested in and what opportunities are in front of you.
It's kind of funny to hear you both talk about the partner thing and Liz, actually, of course, we're always in good company with each other, but that's my whole thing right now is I am currently the managing partner or managing director of my firm, and I'm trying to get myself out of that as well. But my advice back to my younger self, just to go a little different from you guys, is to not afraid to be different. And it's funny because when in high school, there was this exercise that we went through, and they were like, think of three adjectives that start with the same letter as your first name. So mine's were dedicated, diligent, and different. But I realized that as I got more into accounting, I actually somehow lost that from my high school time. I started conforming to the image of what a good CPA or a good accountant looked like, how they behaved, what was expected, when instead what I really needed to do was be myself. And so that's kind of really mine's is it's going to tie back to Liz. What are you passionate about? Who are you truly? What's part of your soul? And use that to really propel your career.
I am now trying to figure out the three B's, and I'm scared of what Liz has already figured out those three B's are. But that's really, really great advice, Donny.
Okay, so wrapping up that question, our next question is from a high school student who wants to know specifically from Donnie. So, Donnie, what do you believe are the key qualities that make a successful accountant?
Number one by far is ethics, or having a strong ethical basis. And I think we've touched on it on more than a couple, in fact, probably even a handful of episodes already, that ethics is the core of our profession. It's the thing where we are known for the most. Whether you call it ethics or integrity, the other word that comes to mind on that is you need to be someone that people can trust. So when I was in high school, I was actually one of the ones when people would have problems, whether it was girlfriend, boyfriend, teacher, whatever, I was one of the ones that people would come to and be like, oh, they would come and vent, and I would be the one giving the advice on, well, you should think about this or, think about that. So that is really kind of the root of what we do. The other things I would really look at is the thirst for knowledge and learning. Continuous learning, lifelong learning is one of the the big values of our profession. Liz, Byron, and I are constantly learning about all kinds of things, whether it's reading, watching podcasts, talking with others and learning from others, so it's not just like school learning. Um, and I think the last one is really the service to the public, I would add, is that, our profession is our ultimate customer, our ultimate client is the public, and it's the trust of the public in our word, especially as CPAs if you're doing audits. But it's that we're here to help the community, we're here to help our clients, we're here to help the community bridge into the state, into the nation, into the world. And that's really the core things that make us accountants.
That was a great answer. So, do you think that it's essential for high school students now to really start learning those key qualities and implementing them into their daily lives?
It's interesting that you ask about learning in that. So some of that, I think you can learn what it is, for example, to be more ethical.
Mhm.
But I think the nature to want to be ethical, to want to help others, sort of feel like that's a little ingrained. And
Mhm.
that's where I think you'll hear a lot of us when we talk about accounting, it was sort of a calling
Mhm.
more than, I mean, I think all of us kind of decided we want to do it, but there's just something that just resonates with it that becomes kind of a calling.
Great answer. Our next question is actually for Liz from another high school student. And I think there are a lot of students that are thinking of going into business and they want to do a second major, but they kind of back away from accounting because they see it as boring or not the funnest major they can go into. So, how come we don't hear more about that side and how did you break the mold?
That's a really good question, and it's very difficult when you're heading into college to pick a major. I think it is a disservice to most people to walk into freshman year saying, I'm going to major in this, because you go into it and you take the classes and you might learn, oh, this is not what I thought this was. Or you might talk to some professionals and be like, this is not what I actually want to do with my day-to-day life. And so I was one of those. I did that. I knew I wanted to go into business. I've been very entrepreneurial my whole life and was, probably the only white kid on the beach selling jewelry at like 6 years old because I made it myself. And I thought that was a really fun thing to do. And so, I think through my childhood, I was building businesses and selling stuff and figuring stuff out and sometimes getting in trouble for it. Like when I started a sports book in fourth grade, like you're not supposed to do gambling at school, especially not in elementary school. But that being said, I didn't know what I was doing, but I liked it, right? And I had this knack for it. And so I was like, I'm going to go into marketing. I'm really creative. I'm great at art. This makes like total sense. And then I took my first marketing class and I was like, oh, I don't like this at all. This is all about like psychology and manipulating people. And that does not align very well with my like thinking. So I went and I took finance courses. I love finance courses. I took economics courses. I love economics courses. When I looked at the jobs, when I talked to people who graduated with those degrees, they were like, oh, yeah, well, I sit and I do spreadsheets all day. I don't talk to people. My like interaction is super limited because I'm like focused on these calculations and this analysis and this. And I'm like, ooh, okay. So I'm probably, I don't know, 40% introvert, 60% extrovert. And if you tell me I can't talk to people all day and I have to look at an Excel spreadsheet, I'm also ADHD. So like this, just all of it, I'm like, no, I don't want to do that. But I love the coursework. So I took a double major in finance and accounting because when I talked to professionals that were CPAs, they were like, oh yeah, we go to our client sites, we sit, we get to talk to the clients. We have like little workrooms where we have 4 or 5 auditors sitting together and we're collaborating throughout the day. We go to lunch with our clients, like, and, I was living in Reno, Nevada at the time, and they were like, we get to hang out at casinos all day and we get to look at like the sports book, again, things I'm interested in. We get to look at the way that craps tables work and analyze the percentage of winnings. And I'm like, okay, that sounds fun. That sounds way better than sitting and just looking at a Excel sheet, analyzing the stock market all day or whatever other thing, most, I would say, entry level finance jobs look like, right? And then when I talked to economists, they were all PhDs. And they're like, yeah, I went to school for 10 years and now I do all of this analytical work and I think about things and I philosophize. And I was like, that sounds great, but I don't want to go to school for 10 years. So Instead, I picked up an accounting major. I kept my finance major. I was one class short of an econ major, but I also wanted to graduate early. So I just said, screw it. I will graduate with 2 bachelor's degrees and call it good, which of course is great. And then move on and get a career and do something cool. And so I went to work for big CPA firms and tried to pick up all the cool industry clients. Whatever client I was like, that's a really weird industry. I want to learn about that. Like, throw me in there. So gambling, brothels, farms. I worked on a lot of interesting cows. I learned all about how they make, germinate, and breed cows. Like, lots of weird stuff like that you would not think an accountant gets to do. I worked on alternative fuels. I got to go learn how they make biodiesel and like dip the tanks on New Year's Day, like climbing up in like full, gear, like hooking myself up, going up, these giant things of oil. Like, there's so many cool experiences I had because I decided accounting was an interesting thing when everybody else was turning their back on it because the classes are hard, difficult, not super fun. Like, it's hard. And then you have to get a license, which is also hard. So it's like a lot of hard work, but it's a truncated amount of time. And then you get a lot of cool opportunities in your career. So I was thinking big picture. Does that answer your question?
Yeah. I also
Okay,
recently
good.
found out that your dad was an accounting professor. So did
Yeah.
that have anything to do with you finally going towards accounting? I know my parents constantly were trying to push me towards business. I mean, eventually I did choose to like go down a business path. So did it impact you?
So yes, it did. And for 3 reasons. And I'll tell you each of them as quickly and concisely as I can, which I'm not very good at. So the first reason is my dad was a professor. So I knew a lot about the industry. I knew like what accounting was. I knew what the courses were going to look like. I knew all my professors. I also went to school where he taught and I'd known them a big chunk of my life. So that made it both more difficult and more easy at the same time. When I was a kid, that's reason number 2, in like middle school, I was getting into trouble a lot, starting sports books in middle school, not the best idea. I guess that was elementary school. My dad was a professor. He was working on his PhD. He was teaching as he was a PhD student. And he decided, well, normal punishment doesn't work for this kid. So I am going to make her take accounting final exams to get out of trouble. So I would be grounded elementary school, middle school. And in order to get ungrounded, I had to get a B or better on accounting finals. So I learned all the material very quickly because it was not time bound. It was, you just have to get a B on this exam and then you're good. And so I learned, financial accounting, managerial accounting. I learned tax. I learned it all as a kid that got into a lot of interesting situations. And so by the time I got to college, I actually knew a lot of the material, which made it a pretty easy major for me to pick up. And I ended up challenging a few of the classes and just taking final exams because that was also easier than sitting through the monotony of lectures. Whole other story. But I can tell you that, yes, it did have a big impact. And the third reason is because not only is my dad a PhD in accounting and was a professor for over 20 years, my aunt is an accountant, my uncle is an EA, my grandfather was a CPA and worked for large public accounting firms, and my great-grandfather also was an accountant. So it's kind of in our blood, and I grew up at the dinner table discussing tax policy rulings and what that meant for different industries, and also having debates about like what happens with SEC reporting and what financial accounting impacts have on the public markets. And so those were things I grew up listening to and contributing to a certain extent. And so, yes, it did influence me for sure. And also, I like to think I'm my own person and make my own decisions.
Yeah. Thanks for sharing that, Liz. I mean, the way you describe everything, accounting does not sound very boring.
It's
And
not.
yeah.
That's the best part.
Our next question is for all 3 of you. How did you know accounting was something that you wanted to pursue? Byron, do you want to start?
Sure, I'd love to start. And just to add to Liz's story, I too got to climb on top of some diesel tanks and do inventory on those large tanks. And there's another story to that, not for the podcast, but for another time. So yeah, there's definitely some unexpected fun times. How did I know? So I had a accounting class in high school. I was part of Future Business Leaders of America. I had an accounting professor, and a lot of classes in high school, generally in my education, I didn't enjoy them. I hated being forced to read books in English class and, math class. It wasn't that I didn't enjoy it, but it didn't challenge me. And I remember in accounting class sitting down and, being given ledger sheets and filling out these debits and credits, and it balanced, and there was like all the things that my brain loves. It made sense. It just like I looked forward to that class. We got to play Monopoly for 2 weeks, and we kept the our finances by hand, and we created reports off those finances. And there were just all of these things that just sang. It was music when I sat down in that class, and immediately I was like, this is it. And like Liz, I didn't have a sports book when I was a kid or sell anything illegal, but I had tons of like little businesses and jobs growing up. So, bringing together that kind of like natural entrepreneurial, mindset, and then understanding the actual mechanics of the accounting and the finances, just it was determined at that moment. I really didn't have much of debate with anything else once I understood what accounting was.
I mean, you mentioned that you were in Future Business Leaders of America in high
Yep.
school. Would you say that the CTSOs and high school clubs are a great way to going into a career and learning about it and really seeing if that's something that you want to pursue?
Yeah, absolutely. Because that introduced me to some real life things that are outside of the textbook and outside of the classroom. I mean, we were very fortunate. One of the things we got to do, I'm in Maryland. We traveled to Disney World and spent a week learning about the business of Disney World and how Disney operated as a business. So, those types of opportunities through the different clubs and things are, broaden your perspective of what it looks like outside of the classroom. So yes.
Donnie, do you want to share your story?
Sure. I like Byron. I actually took accounting first in high school. I think it was my sophomore year in high school. For me, a lot of it came naturally, but it was, I wouldn't say it was boring. It was just easy. It like made sense. It happened. So it wasn't intriguing for me at that point. So in my junior and senior year, I actually kind of shifted and I took actually more IT classes. In the end, in college, I ended up being an accounting and MIS double major, with the focus was actually more on the MIS side, and I almost did a minor in computer science as well. Um, so that was really kind of my focus. But the thing I liked about the accounting was it made sense. Like Byron said, it made sense. Things balance. In high school, my junior year, we actually started our own bookstore, school bookstore, where we really truly did the accounting because we would order from vendors. We sold a lot of snacks, so we would order from vendors. We would, process the accounts payable. We would do all the stuff to do the accounting, and that really made it real, right? We really got to see we actually were making profit. It was pretty cool and all of that. The other thing that Byron mentioned that I think is important too is the participation in, like you said, the CTSOs and the school clubs. So I was both in FBLA and I was also in DECA. The thing that those experiences really gave me was exposure, like you said, to the real, like what's really happening, to be able to go to the competition. I am competitive, so there was that whole I'm going to beat everybody else. In For FBLA, I was the winner of the Future Business Leader competition for I think it was for my state, and I'm in Hawaii, so that was an important part for me and like reassuring, yes, I can do this kind of stuff. Um, so I think it's really just kind of explore, a lot of the different options. And for me, it was just something that came naturally, but it was secondary until I actually went and started participating at the national level, and that's when it kind of flipped because I used to always call myself an IT consultant because that was sexier and it was like more cool. And but once I understood the CPA brand and the fact of the trust and the ethics and everything that was associated to it, accounting really became my primary, and that's really what we do today.
Yeah, I love hearing that both you and Byron were both in CTSOs. And being a CTSO student myself, I mean, I joined BPA in 2019. So I was 12 years old then when I first competed. And I've been competing in the same event, entrepreneurship, ever since. And I truly do think that it steered me towards the business careers and really prepared me for what I'm going to face in college.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So, Liz, do you want to share yours now?
I think I already have. I mean, I was not in high school, I was not as organized, ambitious, or um, nerdy as these two. I was more focused
This
on
is the one who's
sports.
doing college exams like, to get up
That was
tomorrow.
forced on
Right.
me. No, I'm just kidding. I think that those programs are absolutely amazing. And had I known they existed, I would probably have signed up. But I did not know they existed. And I was not, I would say, diligent enough in high school to pursue anything that would help my future in any real direction. So, I did absolutely have exposure to the industry just because of my family and because of my father's unique punishment style. But outside of that, I would not have known what accounting was about, and I wouldn't have really had the opportunity to figure that out in high school at all. And so, I think honestly, the best thing I learned in high school, and the thing that I would give any high school student the advice to learn, is learn how you learn. Figure out, how do you learn best? What does that look like? What gets you into like hyper focus mode and excitement mode? And how do you parlay that into college and then a future career? Because that for me, like, I'm a hands on learner, I'm an auditory learner. I learn by listening to people and asking questions. I don't learn a lot from books. So you can give me the best book in the world and I might read it and pick up half of it. But if Donnie tells me the exact same information, I will retain 100% of it and probably be able to like verbatim respond back to him with everything he just told me. And so, me learning how I learned made a huge difference. And having the opportunity to go to a college that had a lot of lectures and group based activities and the opportunity to interact with professionals, that made a huge difference in like how I chose accounting, because I was able to talk to people actually doing it and learn what they were doing on a day-to-day basis, and realizing that that actually works really well with the way that I learn and the things I enjoy.
I think
Amazing advice.
sorry, I think what Liz is saying is so important because I'm almost the opposite. So I'm a very good book learner, although it takes me forever to read stuff because as I read stuff, I start trying to figure out how to apply it. So I'm both a book learner and an experiential learner. Words come in and out of my head. It takes me a lot. I actually have to concentrate to listen to podcasts to stay focused on it. So for me, I would have gone to a college that did more experiential learning because that's where I actually learned the most.
So, in follow up to that, I have a question that came from a student at Miami University of Ohio who wanted to know what are some of the skills that we may not even think about as students that are important to be successful in a career, whether it's accounting or anything else?
Oh, there is such a wide variety of skills that I think can make anybody successful in the career path they choose. First is show up. It is amazing the number of people who cannot show up consistently. And if you can show up consistently, you are already in the top of the pack. Second is ask the dumb questions, because the dumb questions usually will allow you to deliver what was asked of you. It is better to ask the dumb question on the front end and get it right on the back end than to make lots of assumptions because you're scared to ask the dumb questions and then you deliver something that is entirely wrong. So be willing to show up, ask the dumb questions, and be curious. I think a lot of times people in their careers, they don't show interest. They're just kind of trying to like follow a checklist and not really learn what they are doing. be curious about the things you are doing and take the time to understand what it is, because you will learn so much in that process that you will figure out how to be successful in the path you choose, because you understand it. You learn your environment. I mean, you can listen to all three of us here, and just all three of us, I think that is universally true about anything we take on. We're going to want to understand it before we take it on and as we go through it. And, that curiosity becomes very apparent in the people that you work with, and you will get promoted just based on those things alone.
Do you think that's something that teachers should really push in their classrooms? That instead of just like doing these assignments and just getting the work done, really learn about the coursework and have a passion for it?
Absolutely. Not to criticize teachers as a whole, but I can tell you, I have seen teachers not promote asking questions because it takes away from class time. Or, I had one of my daughters had a teacher, really discourage students from asking the dumb questions. And I think that's absolutely wrong. You should be encouraging these types of things. The whole point of education is to learn and grow and understand. So they should encourage those types of questions and curiosity.
Yeah, when I'm training new team members, I tell them to, be the annoying child and ask why all the time. Like, it's okay to ask why you're doing something. Why is this important? Why do I need to do this? It is my job to not be defensive and think that that's coming from a place of, I don't want to do this or I'm better than this, right? It is your job to say, why am I doing this so that I understand it? So when I get to delegate it to somebody else, I can explain it to them, right? And it's also how you'll figure out who a good manager is versus a manager that just does what they're told. If they can't answer the question, they tend to get really defensive. And then you know that they might not actually know the answer to that question. And that can be a little discouraging, but also enlighten you as to who you're working with, which I think is important. But in terms of skill sets beyond, curiosity and getting a full picture of what you're doing, not just a minute understanding of the one thing, I think especially for kids going into college, understanding that this is the beginning of a long career, right? And being cognizant of that and developing skill sets around taking notes, like I said earlier, figuring out how you learn, figuring out what motivates you, understanding like these are your needs, these are your boundaries, these are the things that are important in your life, these are the things that are important in your career, identifying what are your core values. Like if you know your core values inherently, it makes decision making a lot easier. It helps you figure out, does this violate any of that? Or does it align with where I want to go in life and in my career? And if you can take the time and like develop the skill set to be able to discern those things as you're moving through college and moving through like your first job and understanding what beginning a career really looks like, you will go a lot further, a lot faster, and be more valuable to the industry as a whole.
I would, adding to Liz's one, I think I'm going to build on something I think I heard her say, which is also be willing to do what's asked. There was an interesting situation where I asked an intern to help me with something, and later on I heard there was the rumblings like, oh, why are they asking me to do this, blah blah blah, and I was kind of like, well, if you don't do it, I do it. So are you more important than me and you think I should be doing that? Like, where are we on the teamwork and optimizing the use of time, right? So be willing to do things that are asked and do it with a good attitude. Hopefully there's some learning as you're getting through that and asking for that learning, especially as you're working with someone like, well, help me understand why I'm doing this, right? Those are questions I'll never turn away. What are the best practices? What would you suggest? How do I approach this, right? Coming at that to make sure that you're learning. And then coming back to our previous one, Byron said it's really about being that inquisitive, looking beyond, not kind of just following the checklist. But I think as a person, you also need to understand what kind of job is actually good for you. So if you're the type that I want to come in, I want to follow my checklist or follow my steps and do the same thing every day, there's a different job. That's a different job. That could still be accounting. It's usually probably more the bookkeeping or tax return preparation side of accounting. But there's also the much bigger side, which all of us operate in, which is really the whole advisory spectrum, which is more critical thinking, which is not as defined, which is much more about curiosity. So the big thing, whether it's an accounting or not, is what kind of job do you actually want, and making sure that the job that you're going to is going to be that kind of job.
So would you say for like juniors and seniors that are currently looking at colleges and deciding what majors they want to pursue, instead of just looking at like what majors you're passionate in, really find out which majors match the skill sets you have?
I think within a lot of majors, there are both the very routine and then there are the broader thinking aspects to it. So I think there's a little bit of that. And then you also made the assumption that someone's going into college. I don't think college is for everyone either. So you need to figure that out as well. For example, even if you wanted to be in accounting, you could actually just go to a trade school, a 2-year college. You could even just do online classes technically, and you could become a bookkeeper or a tax preparer if you really wanted to, right? So it's really kind of figuring out what is the right path, what is the right level of education that you need. Maybe you're someone that's super hands-on, working with machinery or gardening. That's definitely not our profession. You could go and audit someone or learn about their industry and get to see that, but you're not actually going to be doing that. So I think as a whole, yeah, it's about really looking at what do you love to do. You heard that from several of us in several different ones, and how can you take that and turn that into something that's going to pay you to do it.
Yeah, that's a great insight, Donnie. I mean, I think that's something that not a lot of high school students know that they can pursue instead of just college. So I feel like a lot of people could benefit from learning that. And now, Donnie, as you mentioned at the start of this episode, I am a high school student intern with the Center of Accounting Transformation, and I've been working with the team on the Agents of Transformation campaign. One of the things I'm excited about is that there doesn't seem to be anything like this out there that I know of. I mean, I don't think any 16, 17, or 18-year-old students who are actually building a campaign for students in a professional space like this. Don't get me wrong, I really enjoyed the opportunity to contribute to messaging that will reach me and my classmates in a way. I guess I'm just wondering, why did you choose this way for this campaign?
This is one of those interesting ones where I don't know so much that we chose it so much as it happened. And that maybe is also towards, you can't plan everything out. As accountants, we like to plan everything out. You heard us all kind of talk about sort of a direction and a path, right? But sometimes you got to go with the flow. I am really thankful that we got someone as talented as you. But to me, in the end, part of it is about knowing your audience. And we talk about this in business, actually in accounting all the time. We want to have different accountants serving, quote, people that look like them. So we talk about the diversity in the profession. In this case, it's age diversity. And you don't want older people like us, I'm not going to call us old, but older people like us designing a campaign that's really trying to get someone from your generation or your age, and you're the one that can do it best. So actually, I thank you for joining on to this and really being a great shining star for a program like this that we actually want to expand and get more students involved in.
Yeah, and as a part of the work on the campaign, I am excited that all three of you are participating as agents. I really like each of your stories. So, how do you guys feel about being seen as superheroes?
It's super weird to me, to be like blunt. We did like a video, shoot to promote that, and they told me to dress up like Black Widow, which of course was like not in my wardrobe, so I had to go shopping, which is also not a thing I'm super good at. So for me, it was hard and interesting. I love the visuals. I think the creative team is amazing, and they put together really awesome videos and pictures and visuals, and like all of it is just incredible. And I hope that it does generate some interest in our profession, because we need excited, intelligent, ambitious young people like yourself to really think that this is potentially a good career. And to be frank, the public needs it too. It's not just us, it's the country, like every business, every, if we look at large scale economics and the impact that accountants have on it, it's huge. And so it's exciting. It's fun to be a part of. It's uncomfortable. And I am trying really hard to just go with the flow.
It really is a blast, and I just love it for so many reasons. As an accountant, as a CPA, I've always considered myself a superhero in some way. And then the way this came together is fantastic because there have been a lot of initiatives over the years to try to, show the profiles of different accountants. The Maryland Association of CPAs did it many years ago. The AICPA has had different initiatives of showing the profiles of different accountants and what they are doing. But this is different. This is doing it in a fun way that really highlights the superpowers of being a CPA and really shows just the diversity within the population of CPAs. So to be a part of this and of course to do it with some of my best friends on the planet is just perfect.
Yeah, I mean, after hearing and learning about your guys' stories, I really do believe that other people and accountants should definitely become an agent of transformation and be shown as superheroes in their industry and their companies as well.
Absolutely.
So our next question is for Byron. So Byron, when you were doing season one of Accounting Arc, did you always have a crossover into Agents of Transformation campaign, or was this like a happy accident that these two things sort of evolved together?
For anybody who knows me, I am not premeditated enough to plan that far ahead for this to have been intentional. Absolutely a happy accident. Donnie and I had been, kicking around the idea for a long time to create a podcast together, and we kicked around different ideas, and one day we were like, we should ask Liz because we both love Liz, and maybe something will come out of it. And then the three of us kind of put our heads together, and all of a sudden we were doing podcasts, and it just fit. I think it really was a happy accident. Donnie will probably tell you that he had this planned out from the beginning, and it was all
No.
very clear in his head, but in mine, not so much.
Amazing. So why did each of you decide to get involved in this campaign and become agents?
The simple answer is Donnie asked. So I make it a rule when I believe in people, when they have built enough rapport with me, and I trust them, that if they ask me to do something, I just say yes. Whatever it is, I'll figure it out, I'll make it happen. And Donnie is one of those people. So anytime he says, hey, I have this idea, I say yes. He doesn't even have to finish the sentence. It doesn't matter what the idea is. I will support whatever crazy idea he has. And this one happens to be a really phenomenal idea on a mission that I absolutely 100% support. And so that, ultimately is why.
Thank you,
Nailed
Liz.
it.
Donnie, do you have an answer to why you decided to become an agent?
I'll maybe flip it a little and say you already heard from Byron really
Mm.
that part of what we're trying to do through this campaign is really show the diversity. I think we're also trying to break down a lot of the myths as you kind of the myths around our profession and what it means to be an accountant. So that was really, I think, the inspiration behind the campaign. Let's do something different. Let's do something that Byron mentioned. There's all these other organizations that are doing things. Let's do something different, to use my word from earlier, than what everyone else is doing. And when I knew that I could get the support of people like Liz and Byron, and actually, I've loved all the additional support that we've seen come through for this, because everyone's looking at this and going, I want to be a part of that. I want to help show how our profession really helps improve the world. I want to show the impact that we have beyond just the numbers, beyond just the money. That I think is the huge thing. And that comes back to the calling, right? There's a calling that we all respond to. And so that's why anyone that wants to become an agent, if you feel that calling, you want to help improve the world, come join the movement.
That's amazing. I mean, I have so many great questions that I haven't even gotten to ask all of you yet, but I see we're getting close to the time and I want to try and squeeze a few more in here, but maybe I should do another interview or episode.
We'd love that.
Anytime you want. You or hey, let's spread the love. If you can find a good colleague, fellow student that wants to do it, we're here. We're ready for you.
Yeah. So, closing up, when and where can we see more information about the Agents of Transformation? And can anyone get involved with this campaign?
I'm going to say yes. Anyone can get involved, and the website is we.improvetheworld.net.
Amazing. Okay. I really enjoyed the opportunity to talk with all of you today, and I really hope we get to do this another time.
Thank you so much.
You as well. Thank you.
Thank you.
The Center for Accounting Transformation provides business professionals with a network for utilizing innovations that are ready for adoption, the training and resources necessary to apply those innovations, and an opportunity to engage the talent and community needed to further the pursuit of innovative accounting practices that drive responsible and mindful business performance. If you'd like to learn more about our Agents of Transformation campaign or share your own story, please visit our website, www.we.improvetheworld.net, and unlock the power of the accounting profession. Special thanks to the Hawaii Society of CPAs for their support of this episode of Accounting Arc Student-Led Conversations.